If you're feeling lonely, are you feeling lonely? Who said yes?
Someone said yes.
Your genes may be to blame, like DoorDash.
No, not
Oh, not DoorDash.
And the doctor behind the UCSD study, he's going to join us live to talk all about loneliness. There he is. Hello. We're talking about loneliness this morning. There's a new study that actually finds that it's a trait. It's a heritable trait. So here to explain, Dr. Abraham Palmer from UC San Diego School of Medicine. This is so interesting. Good morning to you, first of all.
Good morning. How are you?
The first thing I want to ask you is, why would someone study loneliness anyway? Is this an interesting thing to study?
Yeah. Well, loneliness not only feels bad, but loneliness is in fact an important predictor of someone's mental and physical health.
Oh.
Yeah, so greater loneliness is actually a strong predictor of mortality, even stronger than obesity. So,
Really?
Yeah, so not only do we hate to be lonely, but in fact it's really important for understanding health.
So, I'm sorry, this is so interesting to me. So, you know, a lot of right now when we study type 2 diabetes and things like that, that's a leading cause of death right now in American
Absolutely
culture.
right.
So you're saying loneliness is an even more, that's a leading cause of death?
Yeah, somebody's mental state is very important, and it's a predictor statistically of when somebody's going to die.
Okay, so this is something you want to study because being alone is obviously not a good thing. So how was this study conducted? What did you guys do?
Yeah, so we used data from 10,000 human subjects 50 years and older that were collected as part of the Health and Retirement Study by University of Michigan. And all of those subjects had been asked 3 questions that were meant to probe how lonely they felt, not just at that moment, which of course is not going to be genetic, it would change with time, but instead as a trait, how lonely do they feel throughout their life. And then we had genetic data at millions of genetic polymorphisms or genetic differences that distinguish one individual from another. And we checked to see whether any of those genetic differences predicted how lonely these people felt.
So were people still lonely if they were with someone? I don't understand this. So they still felt lonely even if they had a family or even if they had a significant other? Explain.
Terribly important question. So we looked at other factors that might also be important, like the sex of the individual, the age of the individual, and whether or not they were married. Those were important, not sex, but age was important. Interestingly, age is negatively correlated. The older you get, the less lonely you feel.
Really?
And being married, as you would expect, makes people feel less lonely. But above and beyond those environmental factors, non-genetic factors, we found that the genetics of people also predicted how lonely they felt.
So how you're born, you might just be a lonely person.
Choose your parents carefully. Yeah.
Oh, don't we all wish we could do that? So if you can find a gene that says I'm going to be a lonely person or not, whether or not I have people around me, a million friends or whatever, I might just have this one gene in me that says, oh, I guess I'm going to feel a little more lonely than others. Is there a way to then cure it and say, okay, is there a way, maybe a way to combat that, or like a resource that will help me decide whether or not, find out I'm lonely and then do something to fix it?
Yeah, absolutely. Good questions. We were interested to know whether or not we could find any specific genetic predictor of loneliness using very conservative criteria to avoid, claiming that we had found something when we hadn't really found it. We're not confident yet that we found any particular gene that predicts how lonely someone is, but using statistical models, we can show that about 1/4 to 1/6 of how lonely somebody feels is actually determined by their genetics, rather than any other environmental predictor of loneliness.
Well, you know what's so interesting is a lot of people, this makes sense. So a lot of people nowadays call this thing FOMO, where it's called the fear of missing out.
Okay, great.
And if...
Thanks for defining it.
Yes, of course. And so let's say, if I have it, maybe my son, I always say he has it, like, oh, he always wants to be around the crowd.
Yes.
This could be kind of similar to
I
that.
think it is similar to that.
I see my son having those same traits, like I've always got to be out and about, I need to be social, and I feel like he's already that way even though he's like 8 months old. So this is kind of similar.
Yeah, that's right. We all know people that we would feel lonely in their circumstances, but they don't appear to be lonely. And we also know people that seem to have a lot of friends around them, and yet, like you say, they have this fear of missing out. They always feel like they want a little bit more. And what we're saying is that part of that is genetically determined.
Okay, so is there a way, before we go, is there a way that that person, can you find out if you have the lonely gene? Can I find out can someone sitting at home find out if they have the lonely gene?
If we genotype a person, we would be able to predict with about, as I said, 25% accuracy how lonely that person is likely to feel, regardless of their circumstances. So yes,
so
to some
interesting.
extent.
All right, well, I love that you guys are doing this kind of study. And for more information, if you want to get in touch with all of these folks and find out what they're doing, because there is another study coming up, right? What are you doing next?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're actually going to triple the sample size of this study. So we're adding about another 25,000 people to the study, just to give ourselves better statistical power. And we're also studying other traits that we think are related to normal variation, but that are influenced by genes. So for instance, do people want small current rewards or larger future rewards?
All right, bigger sample sizes leads to more accuracy. I love it, Doctor. Thank you so much. For more information, go to fox5sandiego.com. Click on that Scene On tab. Brad, I'll send it back to you for now. Not a lonely man, Brad.
I think it was fantastic. I mean, I could listen to what he has to say, you know, what he has to say when they do the next study. Bring it back.